Hello, hello. I think you're my only one here, Christine. So if you have any questions for me or there's
Hi.
anything I can
Sorry,
help you
the
with,
phone was away from me for a second. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Any questions?
Yeah.
I I don't really have any questions other than just kind of waiting impatiently for some like progress. I get like visual progress with Jump Health Skin.
Hmm.
So we're just started week 3 at full dose for phase 2.
Perfect.
Um, and I sent some pictures to Sarah. So it looked like it was getting a little bit better between week 1 and week 2. And then from week 2 to week 3, like the beginning of week 3. So yesterday I took pictures. I take pictures every Sunday.
Perfect.
Um, it didn't look any better. So I know it's like still the beginning parts of phase 2, but I don't know. I guess like in your experience when we're just obviously being a little bit impatient and just wanting his skin to get better. So I
Totally.
don't know. That's kind of where we're at with that.
No worries. I completely get that. So it can look totally different for all kids. So I'll kind of walk
Hmm.
through like there's different stepping stones where different kids get see results visibly.
Hmm.
And I was trying to find because I swear I saw a note from Sarah about John Paul recently, but now
Okay.
I'm gonna keep searching.
Okay.
So one of the things, so for some kids, they get better as we like start to get better as we put those initial foundational supplements in place and some of those
Hmm.
recommendations because we start opening drainage pathways where
Hmm.
they have historically been at some level of dysfunction and things are
Hmm.
accumulating and building up, right?
Hmm.
Then, as we get into phase 2 for kids, we're starting to address some pathogens in the body that are causing inflammation, and we can start to see some impacts there. But with a lot of kids in that second phase, it doesn't start to happen until weeks
Oh,
like
Papa.
2
Oh,
to
Mom,
4.
please be up
So
in the
it won't
night.
always happen right away. So that is one thing to
Hmm.
be aware of. And then I
Hmm.
would say the rest of kids tend to get better when we get into phases 3 and 4, where we're doing more of the antifungal work, especially if they do
Okay.
have a pretty significant mold load that has
Uh-huh.
colonized the body. If fungus is the primary driver of inflammation, it just means that we
Hmm.
might not start to see that resolution. So we do see
Hmm.
that sometimes with kids, particularly when there is a more severe presentation
Hmm.
on the skin, that
Hmm.
we need to go through that phase 2 to start addressing some of those other pathogens, but we don't start to see that until we get to the antifungal phase because that's the real problem for those kids.
Okay.
So
And is
it
there
just depends.
hmm That makes sense. I feel like for John Paul, that probably is more fungal, it seems like, but just the way that it looks and all of the other things.
Totally.
Um, but is there a reason why you address like the pathogens
Yep.
before we do like the mold?
Yes, great question. So the reason we do that first before the antifungals is parasites and bacteria are going to be secondary infections that result from mold exposure. So for instance, parasites are protective in nature. Everybody has parasites. They only overgrow when there is toxic terrain in the body. And one of the things that they do is they harbor onto toxins like mold, but this is also true of things like metals and chemicals, so
Mm-hmm.
that they are not causing tissue damage. As that
Okay.
happens, we have to address them so that we don't do the antifungal work. And then at some point in time, as part of the natural order of things,
Mm-hmm.
parasites' life cycle is going to end. When it
Mm-hmm.
ends, their
Mm-hmm.
bodies release enzymes that break them down, and then that mold and those metals and all those chemicals get re-released into the system. So if we've
Mm-hmm.
already done all that cleanup work with antifungals and doing that before
Mm-hmm.
we address the parasites, if we do
Mm-hmm.
that, we kind of have to go back and do antifungal work again to clean up some of those things that have been reintroduced into
I
the
see.
GI tract in particular. So I know it can be super frustrating because from your
Mm-hmm.
perspective, you're like, if fungus is the issue, let's jump there so we can start
Yeah.
getting better, right?
Yeah.
But it's a really important strategy that we have to make sure that we're addressing those things first before we get to the fungal side of things so that it doesn't come back again in the future.
That makes sense. I figured there was obviously a reason. So that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. What
And
else though?
then
Yeah, go ahead.
for Joseph, he's not passing like he's not pooping yet every day.
Okay.
So we've tried a couple things. We did like the NDF pooper thing. We
Mhm.
did been trying to do we started doing like 4 ounces a day of prune juice.
Great.
And then we just got in the oxy something. So I
Yep.
just gave him that today actually in like half a capsule.
Perfect.
You did not poop yesterday, but you did this morning. So that is a concern for me just because he historically, I'm on the phone 1 second.
Hey, but I didn't poop today, but I pooped too.
Historically he doesn't you know, go to the bathroom every day. John
Mhm.
Paul does, Joseph does not. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So we're working on that. Hold on a second,
Perfect.
okay, hold on.
Oh, Mom.
And then what else was I going to tell you? My husband's like gonna start um kind of going through the program also.
Awesome.
So, and then I wanted to, but we are trying for another baby, so figured it's not the best time.
Totally okay.
But yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Mom.
Awesome.
Trying to think if I have any other questions.
That
Mom.
oxyputter should help in a big way.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, that was a concern of mine because especially in like Sarah was saying, because we're in phase 2, so he needs to be like passing,
Mhm.
going to the bathroom every day.
Yep, totally. And getting into phase two might help a little bit.
Uh-huh.
It just depends on the kid. As we start to bring in some of those antimicrobials and antiparasitics,
Uh-huh.
if there is inflammation being caused by those, it can help release those. We just want to make sure that he's having a bowel movement as often as
Yeah.
possible from a safety
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. And also, it's quite a lot of vitamins and supplements that we're doing with each of them. And for the most part, I feel like we get through most things every day. But what is the like, I can't
Those,
imagine that obviously everybody's doing 100% of the vitamins every single day, with like a 5-year-old and a
nope,
3-year-old.
nope.
But I will say they are such champs and they really do most of it,
Yeah.
you
No,
know.
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
we do not expect 100% compliance with kids.
Yeah.
Typically, where we're aiming is we'd like for them to be doing it about 70% of the time. That's going to help
Okay.
make sure that we're getting in the right direction. So,
Yeah.
as long as you're trying, we know sometimes kids don't want to do things. Life happens, we forget, the timing
Yeah.
doesn't work out. It's all good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This is such a great like opportunity for me to ask more questions. I wish I had more, but I don't think I do.
That's okay. If any more come up, as other people ask questions too, then just put them in the chat. You don't have to unmute yourself if that's easier, whatever works.
Okay. Okay. Is there to have more people join probably by now?
Yep, there's a
Oh,
few
okay.
more here.
Oh, awesome. I'm gonna mute myself then.
Okay,
Give
no
other people a
worries.
chance. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Who else has got questions or need help with anything at all?
I have some questions about my protocol.
Yeah. Hey, Jamie.
So I am still on phase 2
Okay.
of my protocol, even though we've remediated and the mold should be gone. I'm really having a lot of trouble with the binders.
Okay.
So I'm only on one. I'm on the Ultra Binder, but I find that I can only do like every other day. And
Mm-hmm.
I've worked up to like 1 teaspoon. And
Okay.
if I do every day, I start breaking out with
Ah.
acne.
Okay. Let's see here. You can probably answer this quicker than I can find in your protocol. What type of liver support are you on right now?
Let me see here.
And I'm trying to look too. I'm thinking you're on.
It's the Amino D detox.
Perfect. Okay. Um, oh, that's why I'm confused looking at your protocol. Let's see here. Are you doing the liver GI detox as well?
No.
Okay. I see that in your phase 1 supplements. Did that discontinue for your phase 2? Oh, I see.
Um,
Your amino D
I'm
has some
trying to look
overlap
through
there,
here.
so I think that's why. I think they did swap out.
Okay.
I am wondering, did you seem to tolerate the liver GI detox okay?
I think I did. It's been so many months since I did phase one. I paused everything because of the remediation.
Okay. Okay. That could be part of why you're getting those breakouts. With the Ultra Binder, how much did you say you're doing right now?
I worked up to a teaspoon, but I was doing it. It's about like, actually, no, is it a teaspoon? No, I think it's a half a teaspoon.
Okay, perfect. But that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be a whole ton. There's kind of a range that we give you from half a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons. So don't feel like you have to get all the way up there. The big things that we want to make sure is not happening is signs that drainage isn't working. So acne is one of those, but then also thinking about constipation as well. Have you had any of that happen?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That's why I've been trying to like every other day to make sure things are moving.
Okay, good. Good, good. Um, let's see here. I'm wondering if we actually, do you have any of that liver GI detox still by chance?
I can check. I might
Even
have it.
even if you just had like a week's worth, I'm curious if you switch those out, the liver GI detox for the amino detox, and see if that helps move things a little bit better for you, in combination with the Ultra Binder being there. If that's the case, then I would just switch to that for
Okay.
phase two.
Okay. I can try that. So like a week and see how that goes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna find something to write notes down so that I can relay it to the rest of the team as well. Who else has questions for me?
Hi, this is Katie,
Hey, Katie.
Dawson's mom. Hi. Um, so yeah, just kind of wanted to touch base and kind of get your thoughts. I'm sure obviously, we just kind of had to switch everything up for him because he wasn't responding well to things, and so we're kind of like starting from the beginning, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess just maybe looking for some reassurance or,
Yeah.
I don't know, your thoughts on if that's like normal or if you've seen that or
Yeah,
just what do you think?
tell me more about what phase you were in where things were going off
We
the
weren't,
rails.
we were in, we had just finished two.
Okay, perfect.
But it seems like it wasn't even like the things that so the biocidin and the biotonic, I don't even think that's like initially what started like the itching and like his skin getting worse. I feel like it was we stopped the KL support because I do think it was kind of around that time, but then he was still on the other binder.
Okay,
So she put us on, kind of starting from the beginning again, and I ordered the stuff from Full Script, so I'm just waiting for them to come in. So I decided to just kind of like stop everything for a few days
totally.
and just kind of see how he's doing. And his skin is actually like pretty clear. He still is like itching though, but like I don't know. I'm like, okay, that's interesting that it looks like pretty good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it when you brought in the para one and two, or even just the para
So
one?
that's new.
Oh, okay.
That's part of the new protocol.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we were on the 4 weeks of the biocide and then biotonic, and it was probably
gotcha.
like week 3 or it was just getting worse.
Okay.
And he was just really itching and bleeding.
Yep. Did you catch what I was sharing with Christine earlier about why we do some more antimicrobials before we get to the fungal side of things earlier, by chance?
No, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's okay. Totally fine. Okay, so with the biocidin in particular, biocidin is a really potent antimicrobial. It has antifungal herbs in there and it has biofilm disruption. So one of the reasons that we're making this shift is it sounds like bringing that in too early just didn't work for him. And one of the reasons that we did that initially is based on what we saw on his GI map, in particular, that there was this pretty significant bacterial issue. So we wanted to bring that in to kind of lower some of that load. It sounds like he didn't respond well to that, which is not terribly uncommon. So what we're doing is we're bringing in those paras now. Those para products are still going to be antibacterial, but they're going to have less antifungal herbs in them in particular. And the way that it disrupts biofilm is different. So biofilm is something that pathogens all use, whether it's bacterial, parasitic, or fungal, and it protects them from the immune system to help hide it. But it also makes it very difficult to do eradication. And as we start breaking those down, which is really important, those types of pathogens then can cause more tissue damage and more oxidative stress. So you start to see more of an inflammation, more itchiness. So it sounds like that approach just didn't work well for him. So what we're doing is kind of pivoting now. We're bringing in those para products instead, which should be more gentle, and a lot of kids do tolerate them very well. And instead of that kale support, we're bringing in more amino acid supports to drive bile flow. So rather than using herbs to do this, we're going to use amino acids so that his body can then decide how fast to start pushing detoxification rather than us kind of helping it along, which is really important long term because we don't want him to have a crutch long term for detoxification capacity. We want his body to be able to do that.
Right. Okay. So is like the first approach, is that kind of like more typical of what you usually start with?
Yep, absolutely. So it just sounds
Yeah.
like he's just a little bit more sensitive, which is okay. We just want to make sure that we're not going too fast for him.
Okay. So would you say you're still like as
Oh, yeah.
confident, I guess?
Yes. Yep, absolutely. We just got to
Okay.
pivot sometimes for kids, and that's totally to be expected. It's just different for everybody.
Okay. You know, obviously it's like, gosh, we just spent all this money on the initial stuff, and obviously we don't know how he's gonna respond, so it happens, but it's like, gosh, we just, you know,
Totally.
reassurance helps.
Yes, and just to give
Okay.
you some reassurance, it doesn't mean that those things aren't going to be useful at some point. We might
Mhm.
actually switch back to them. We do see this often with kids where they don't tolerate them initially. We pull back, go a different way, and still are able to utilize those because they're still going to be serving an intended purpose. We're just going to go about it a different way. And when kids are more sensitive, it tends to be because their pathogen load is significantly higher, and we just have to take a different strategic approach there.
Okay. Do you find that it has any correlation when you say it's sensitive, like also being like emotionally sensitive that way?
It can be, yes. Is he
I'm just
very
curious.
just moody right now?
Just generally, I would say
Okay.
he's just more of like a sensitive kid. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I think we see a big range of kids where a lot of kids are totally unbothered by things just emotionally in life, and some kids are just a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more sensitive where they are, I think, more responsive to subtle changes, not only within their body, but then within their environments. So, yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like it's all correlated. You know,
Yes.
like it's not just a coincidence. Nothing is coincidence at this
Totally.
point.
Totally. No, absolutely.
Okay.
We see a lot of kids where they will be really sensitive. We start to lower the pathogen load, the toxin load, and they become totally different kids. They're a lot more outgoing, like less things bother them. They have a lot more emotional resilience when things don't go their way, right? So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
totally
Mm-hmm.
normal and to be expected.
Okay. So then do you think that our initial phase one, I can't find it right now, but it's some of the things that we've been on for
Hmm.
several months or whatever now, but like the mega IgG, the
Yep.
happy, the ion gut, whatever. So since I just kind of paused everything for a few days, do you think I should just go back to those things that I was already on? He was already on for a while,
Yep. I would
or
start
do I need to
there.
slowly do those
You should be
again?
okay. You should be totally okay to bring those back in. I would probably
Okay.
get those phase one foundations in place for at least a week before you start to tiptoe into the new stuff.
Okay. Okay. And then I also had ordered, and I asked Sarah, and she said, you know, yeah, let's give it a try. Des Bio
Hmm.
itch formula. I'm just curious if you've had anyone use that or what your thoughts were on that.
We don't have a ton of people use it, but I have some colleagues who really like it. So
Okay.
let us know how you like it,
Yeah.
because if so, I know there's multiple people who would love to know about it.
Okay. Okay. And then, so yeah, obviously since we've pivoted, like I'm assuming we're probably gonna end up being longer than the initial like 6 month or whatever, right? Like, is that
Totally
okay
okay.
or
Yep, totally okay.
okay?
So
Okay.
it looks like we've got, I can't see the full timeline here, but just know we got those full 4 phases for you. When we get to the 6 months, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like we say you can't come to community calls, you don't have support anymore. What we're going to do is still continue to
Okay.
have you come to community calls. That way we can support you as you wrap things up. Totally common that happens. It doesn't happen for everybody. So, but some people get to the end and we just need to work through another month or two of things, and that's okay. We don't want you to feel like
Okay.
we're losing you or you're not going to have access to us by any means. If
Okay.
you need additional one-on-one call time, that's the only point at which we would say, hey, we're going to send you another invoice so that you can have some more dedicated time with your practitioner, but it's not required.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll see how this goes again. Give it another
Sounds
shot.
good. Yeah. Let us
Yep.
keep us updated.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Tidri. This is Hélène. I'm Caledonia's mom. It's nice
Hi,
to see you
Elaine.
again.
You too.
I have a few questions. Recently, did the Petri dishes, the home test for mold,
Yeah.
and it's way more than what I was expected. It's actually quite varied, and I let it go like 7 days instead of 5.
Okay.
I didn't have enough time at 5 days to take pictures. So yeah, I'm a bit overwhelmed by that of what it will entail, and I'm also a bit surprised because her eczema started once she started school, and there's a lot of like visible water damage at school,
Okay.
but not so much at home. So I'm like, where could it be coming from?
Okay.
And we do a good job ventilating the house, and it's an old home, so it just ventilates by itself, just by nature.
Sure.
So yeah, that's yeah. So I
Okay.
feel like there's a lot
Tell me
in our
about
future.
how you did sample collection with your plates.
Yes. So, for example, like window seals, I would do Q-tips,
Okay.
and then place it on the agar, and then like beds, for example, I would just rub,
Okay.
and then the like dust would fall into it. Like same thing with couches and things like that.
Okay.
Rugs,
Perfect. What happened with the windowsill ones?
pretty bad.
Okay. If I'm remembering correctly, when we talked initially, there's a good amount of humidity on the inside of your windows, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, is there anything visible as far as water damage around the molding of the windows?
Not really. No.
Okay. Okay.
No.
Um, what color were the spores in the plate? Was there a variety?
A variety. Yeah. The windows I think were like more like black and green.
Okay. Couple of options. So if
Yeah.
you want to look into this in your own, you can certainly purchase like some tools that you can look at. So a couple of the things I would be thinking about are, gosh, I have one around here. I wish I could show you. I don't know where I put it, but there's like an infrared kind of camera. There it is. That can show you if it's a thermal camera. It's a kind of like a thermal gun where you can see if there's any cold or warm spots around the window to indicate, hey, is there something that's happening here where there is like a water leak that is feeding some type of organic material within the
see.
wall to tell you,
Yeah.
hey, there is an issue here that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
You could do that. You could alternatively do more of like a moisture meter. Typically, that's going to require you to puncture the wall with kind of like these 2 probes that come on it. And I can probably find links and put them in the chat here for you. But that way you can see if there is moisture around the window anywhere
Okay.
that way.
Yeah.
The third option would be to hire some type of inspection. It
Yeah,
does not have to be
yes.
like an inspector if you don't want it to be. It might be more affordable and helpful if you were to do something like a mold dog.
Yeah.
We have clients who do both and get good results with both. So it's really just up to
Okay.
you and budget and who's available in your area.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
mold dog is going to be able to tell you, is there a problem here, and identify where it is. If you
Yeah.
do an inspector, they're going to come in and do a whole lot of looking around at everything. They'll have all those tools. They can do additional testing if needed, but they can tell you more about where the issue is and what the scope of work needs to be for remediation.
Yeah.
The downside is inspectors tend to be more
Right. More
expensive
expensive.
than a
Yes.
mold dog,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That makes sense.
So totally up to you, but those might be some good first steps to figure out. I would probably start with the windows. So know that when we're looking at like the couches and the bedding and those
Yeah.
things might potentially need to be replaced, but they are porous materials. So maybe a good starting point is taking something like that EC3 mold spray and spraying it on it. It's not going to fix the problem if there are mold spores there, but it can help kind of deteriorate them and lessen the load in terms of what we're breathing in. But
Yeah.
if there's a mold issue in the home, let's say around the windows, for instance, that's permeating into the air, it's going to continue to contaminate the bed and the couch and all those important
Right.
things.
Right.
So figuring out if there is an issue around the windows is probably a really good first step, especially since
Okay.
that's where you had tested with the swabbing.
Yes. And then we have mini split systems. So would it be helpful like to sleep with the mini split on so it like dehumidifies?
Have you looked in the mini split by chance for mold?
No, I didn't test that.
Look in there. Mini splits are really notorious for whatever reason for having mold in them. And so if there is mold, what I don't want to say is sleep with the mini split on where you're like pumping more into it. It might need to be cleaned, and that could be a source of mold because it's a dark,
Okay,
damp
like the
area.
filter would be cleaned. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And then,
absolutely.
So, and then once I clean that, maybe that plus like sleeping with the air purifier on, like both
Yep.
at the same time.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. That's super helpful.
Good.
And then just a quick other question. We just started phase 3, and it seems like the behavior, the emotions, like it's a lot.
Okay.
Did that to be expected? Sometimes it's hard to say, like, is it like this 4-year-old behavior, normal behavior,
Totally.
or her body's going through a lot and therefore a
Is it
lot's going on.
more like anger or is it more like just
Anger.
dysregulate? Okay, it's anger. That's what I
Anger,
figured.
dysregulation, seriously, like sometimes it's everything. Seems
Totally.
like the smallest thing is like a big deal.
Okay, totally fair. So because you're getting into that antifungal phase, that's why I was immediately thinking that it was going to be anger and rage. Now, it's kind of a twofold issue. Mold is a really nasty organism in that it can change the way the neurotransmitters are produced in the brain. So some people get really sad and emotional, some people get
Uh-huh.
really angry.
Okay.
Part of why that anger can be happening is due to, as we start to kill those organisms, all of it has to go through the liver. And so if the liver, which is commonly the case for kids with eczema, is already in a tough spot, even though we're
Yeah.
supporting it, it just means that we're putting additional burden in so you can see those big emotional, angry outbursts.
Yeah.
Are you by chance doing any like castor oil packs on her?
No, I know it was in the protocol, but we
That's
didn't
okay.
do that. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay. It might be honestly the most affordable non-supplement way to do that. The other way you could do that is you could just creep up her kale support a little bit. So I know she's doing about half a capsule 2 times a day. If you wanted to creep up like an extra quarter of a capsule at least 1 time a day, that might help with some of those detoxification issues in the liver to pass through that a little bit quicker.
Okay. So sorry, the kale support, what's the name of the supplement?
It's actually called Kale Support. It's from Cellcore. It's going to be a white bottle with blue writing on it.
Okay. And then you said an extra half,
An extra quarter.
an extra quarter a day. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, stick with
It's
it. You
great to
got
have a
this.
chance to talk with you as well. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. All right, what else?
I had a question.
Hi, Allison.
Hi, I'm Chloe's mom. We're working with Julia. We're still in the early stages. I think she just got the GI map and we were gonna meet with her this week.
Perfect.
But we've been chatting with her because Chloe's had this another time too, but she gets these strange hypersensitivity reactions. I was curious if you had any experience on that. Like she had one last year. I don't know what it was triggered by, but she just gets really strange little rashes all over her body. Like they look kind of like little pimples. And last time it progressed pretty significantly. We ended up in like the ER and then eventually it did clear up. And then this time I think it was triggered by vaccines that she got mid-September. And ever since then, she's been getting these weird little rashes everywhere. And the dermatologist is just like, it's some hypersensitivity response. It's just the immune system that's going crazy. And it makes her eczema worse too. Like, I think it's whatever's going on in her body. Like all her eczema spots are terrible right now. And she won't stop scratching. And so I was, one, just curious if you've ever had experience with this. I feel like I've Googled like weird Giannotti crusty, like strange syndromes. If the dermatologist is just kind of like, doesn't have an answer. She's just like, your daughter's extra sensitive. So I was just curious if you had any experience with that. We're going to do a biopsy today, but I'm guessing it's just going to show like, I don't know, immune cells. I don't know, but
yeah.
Curious if you had if you've ever heard of it or what is it?
I think your gut instinct here is probably correct, but can you tell me more about what it looks like? I know you said it looks kind of like pimply. Do they have like a head to them? Is it like a pustule?
Yeah, so they look like little pimples. Some of them do have a head. So like the first time she had it last year, they were like, oh, it's folliculitis or something. And so we tried like mupirocin and other topical antibiotics, and they didn't do anything. And so we went through the whole thing where they were like, it's eczema, it's folliculitis, it's staph. And then last year they ultimately landed on like an immune thing. And then so this year it's the same. It's just these little pimples, and they just like will be on her legs, and then those will go in, and they're on her arms, and then those go in, they're on her torso, and it just like spreads to her body. And then every eczema spot she has, like her hands, her knees, they just like light up. So normally she's like somewhat mild and manageable, but then when this is going on, everything just is like terrible. Like her hands are just like completely red, and she's scratching them like crazy. So I know it's something internal that's like turning everything on, but I just it's been 2 months and like 2 months since the vaccines, and I'm just like, I don't know when this is going to end, and I don't even know what's going on.
Totally. Were some of the vaccines that she received for bacterial illnesses?
It was Hep A and flu.
Okay,
Yeah, and we did at the same time, which in retrospect, I wish we didn't. But
that's
and then at the background, we do have a history of mold exposure. But we did a whole remediation with PJ Harlow for like 7 months. So I'm
Mhm.
feeling like our home is good, but obviously that's in the back of my head. I don't know.
Sure, totally. Okay, so what I was thinking was if there was a bacteria that was introduced, a lot of times when we see those kind of like little pimply presentations, a lot of times we see them with kids, they can happen all over their body, or sometimes they're only on parts of their body where it kind of looks like just a little pimply, like a pimple, but it's just a bump. It's not like eczema like we normally think about it. And it can be related to bacterial issues in the body. So the way that we like to think about bacteria as a whole is that bacteria is inflammatory. It can certainly cause itchiness, but it's not usually the core issue. Bacteria is kind of a reaction from an organism perspective where bacteria starts to overgrow when there is something introduced to the body that it's trying to clean up. So Hep A and the flu are both going to be viral. That might be that as those things are being introduced, knowing that she does have eczema right now, her immune system might just be compromised. So normally what happens with viruses is the body should be keeping those in dormancy. We mount an antibody response, but then they go and they just chill forever so that we have an antibody memory. If those are there and as they're circulating, if the immune system is unable to put those into dormancy, it's going to start to respond in a way to try and do some cleanup of those things and the oxidative stress basically that those might be causing within her body. So we might start to see some of those bacteria start to overgrow and cause the more of that the pimply presentation. Now, I would be surprised if biopsy shows anything as far as bacteria goes. I imagine it's probably going to come back as inconclusive and just say she's having an immune response to something. But I think it's probably just causing an inflammatory response in her body for the time being. And I know we're obviously waiting to get all the test results back so we can go through them and get things moving in the right direction. But I think what we're probably going to do is start trying to take some of the burden off of that bacterial load sooner rather than later, just so we can make sure that those new presentations go away for her.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I did message Julia because I was like wondering because we're almost on all her foundational supplements, and I was like, is there any chance? I mean, it obviously didn't cause it because the issue happened before we started, but Julia was like, you can cut in half the kale support and the BCATP, but like none of that would be like adding fuel. It doesn't sound like it sounds like it's just going to help at this point.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So if you feel like at any point in time it is making things worse, that's where we would want to cut it, because one of the things that we're doing with the BCAATP and kale support for her is knowing that liver function has probably been altered in some way. We're starting to turn that back on, which means that we're essentially pushing detox for her and opening up these pathways that haven't been running effectively. As that happens, you can start to see little flares in the skin. It doesn't often happen for kids, but if you notice that things are getting worse, that's where we say, okay, let's bring it back down just a little bit and make sure things are nice and stable, and then inch our way up to that full dosage for her.
Got it. Okay. And then I just had one more question.
Yeah.
Because I know you guys work with a lot of people who have mold exposure. Like, I guess in my head, I thought move out, remove the mold, we come back, and magically she's going to be like better.
Yeah.
Do you guys see like needing to, like you go back and it's the same? Like there's something just in her that needs to be?
Yep. Great
Because I
question.
just thought it was like the magic bullet and then, we fixed everything. But honestly, she's like worse. So.
Yeah. Totally. So what you're pointing to is something called colonization. And colonization is when mold starts to live inside the body and it produces the mycotoxins that make us sick from the inside out. So our body becomes the moldy building even if we leave the environment, which makes it really confusing oftentimes for folks, because if they know there's a mold issue and they leave, sometimes people do see symptom improvement for sure, which is kind of what you're speaking to.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, like, oh, it's like everything went away.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
And then there's some people where it's like it didn't get better, and then they start questioning, was it really my house, or is it like just the body or whatever? If that's still happening, and everyone has some level of colonization, it's just a matter of how the immune system is able to tolerate it effectively. So if it's not getting better, it doesn't necessarily mean that remediation was not successful. So as much as possible, I know that's kind of like the devil on your shoulder right now.
I don't want to deal with that again. Yeah.
Totally. I think it's more likely that there's a colonization issue. And one of the things that we're really thinking about for her and why we want to do toxin testing, even if we know that we've done remediation already, is to see, are there mycotoxins that are being produced that she's still excreting, even if there isn't a current exposure. That tells us about fungus that's living in the body that needs to be addressed so that it stops producing those and stops causing her skin issues and all of the other issues that she has.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes me feel better. I see the stories of like everything went away and I'm like, oh my God, there's more mold here. But okay.
Yeah.
Makes me feel better.
No, totally.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. What else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
So we haven't actually even officially like onboarded yet, and I just saw the community call come through, and I was like, oh my goodness, great.
Perfect.
Kind of tiptoeing off of what the lady before me just said. Thank you so much. Is I think we might be dealing with colonization. We left a moldy home like 6 months ago, and my son's eczema seems to just be worse. So we're just kind of trying to figure out, like, you can hear him in the background, try to figure out like which step to take. We waited like months to get in with this local doctor who is supposed to be really holistic, and now she just wants to put him on an antihistamine and potentially a steroid, and my gut is screaming at me not to do it.
Okay.
But then I've had people talk to me about mineral balancing. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on mineral balancing.
Yep, totally. So we do have a lot of experience with mineral balancing, especially for kids. Mineral balancing is going to be really helpful if there's depletion issues, which is not uncommon with kids where there is eczema or any level of gut dysbiosis, just because we know that if there's inflammation in the GI tract, kids are not able to chemically digest and therefore absorb all the good food that they're eating. So they can become depleted in a number of different minerals and vitamins as a whole. That being said, I would say that mineral rebalancing is mostly effective when it comes to supporting systems from a nutrient perspective and pushing out metals in a really slow but effective way. So it's not uncommon that in our protocols, we're going to incorporate some minerals. It just depends on the child, on the way that they're presenting, and if we're suspecting some really significant imbalances based on presentation, behavior, what the skin looks like, how the immune system is functioning. So even thinking about things like zinc, for instance. Zinc is something that we will sometimes bring in for kids because we know that their immune system is so compromised, and it's really important for white blood cells to have zinc effectively. So we'll be thinking about those things. But I don't tend to find that mineral balancing works well for eczema or if there is an old mold issue, because it's going to support the body's innate ability to bring those things back into balance from a nutrient perspective. But we don't typically find that nutrients are enough to help when it comes to things like mold, because it's going to impact the way that the liver functions and the way that their thyroid functions and the way that their cells produce energy and the way that the GI system works all together. So I think it can be helpful, but it's not an end all be all typically for our kids, especially when there has been a known mold issue.
Yeah, totally. Is nutrient deficiencies or imbalances, do the GI mapping or the total tox show that, or how do you figure
Good
that?
question. So that's really where we're on that initial consultation, we're going to be going through and talking about what symptoms look like, what behavior looks like, any key things that you're noticing of like, is this normal? Is this not normal for them? That we want to go through with a fine-tooth comb on everything to figure out what's happening. The toxin test and the GI map are not going to necessarily tell us about nutrient deficiencies. With the GI map, if we're seeing that there are low levels of certain beneficial bacteria that we know are producing some nutrients, vitamins, fat-soluble things, then we're going to know that those are likely low and we can support that. But there's no specific way to do that. It's typically done through something like a blood draw, and since we try not to do that on kids, we try to forego that if we can.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I guess these programs that I've been seeing a lot about are the HTMA tests. And of course, everyone's trying to sell their product, but they're just making it seem like that's the only thing that works. That's the deepest thing that you need.
I know.
Yeah.
I totally get it. I see it too. No, we do have a lot of experience. If at some point in time we need to do something like an HTMA, our whole team is skilled enough to be able to do that. We're more than happy to, but it usually is not necessary and doesn't give us a big jumping off point the way that the GI map and the toxin testing does for kids.
Yeah. Okay, and just one more question.
Yeah.
Is there such thing as pooping too much for your baby? I feel like he's been pooping way too much.
Remind me how old he is.
He's 2.
Okay. How much is he pooping?
sometimes like 4 ginormous times a day.
Okay, is it pretty formed?
No.
Okay, so then I would say yes.
Yeah.
So we want it to be somewhere between 1 and 3 times a day, especially when solids are introduced. So I probably like twice a day for his age.
Yeah.
And we want it to be well formed. So if it's not well
Yeah.
formed, that tells us that the body is essentially trying to move things quicker because something is bothering it.
Yeah.
It's really smart, but it's not necessarily a good thing to have more, I would say, than 3. So it just means that we want to kind of bring those things down within reason. We don't want him to be constipated. We still want to be having at least a bowel movement every day, but there's something driving that inflammation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's why I keep going back and forth with my gut is telling me that I think the GI map is very important here.
Yep, definitely.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
I do have one more question.
Yeah.
So this was, I think, last week, and we noticed that Joseph, after, I don't know if it was like instantly after he had a popsicle, but he had some like redness and like some small hives around his like mouth area. And we have not seen that in several months. Like before, he used to kind of randomly, I feel like, get a little couple hives, or that, that would have happened. I know that he did not have anything that he's allergic to. So
Okay.
we were really kind of got scared for a moment, like, why is this happening? And we were, checking his body and making sure like he wasn't actually having some kind of like reaction. I'm trying to think what else he ate, but I would have to double check with my husband, but I think it was like more shortly, specifically after eating a popsicle, a Johnny Pop popsicle, which
Okay.
he's had 100 million times before,
Sure.
without that having happened. So what could that be? Why did that happen, and what does it mean? And I don't
Yeah,
know.
totally. I'm looking it up really quick, but I'm pretty sure those Johnny Pops don't have dyes in them, right?
They do not.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I do know that while they don't have dyes, they do have a pretty significant amount of sugar in them. Sometimes it almost looks just like red pimples around kids' mouths. Sometimes they will have it all the time. Sometimes it gets worse when they're eating certain things. It's typically a sign of a fungal issue in the body. So again, since we know that that's part of it for the boys, maybe that sugar is just kind of irritating
Okay.
irritating the skin, even if he doesn't normally have any issues right there. That could be part of what's happening there. I'm looking at the ingredients here too. Let's see here. Yeah, that's all it is. It does have, each one of them has about 10 grams of sugar, so that's,
A lot of sugar.
yeah, it's like 2.5 tablespoon or teaspoons of sugar ultimately. So it could be that, I think, causing that irritation around the mouth more than anything. There's nothing else in there unless there isn't, I don't think there's any of those, especially if he's had them time and time again. There shouldn't be anything else in there that from a fruit and vegetable perspective that's irritating him.
It did remind me kind of like years ago when he was maybe 1. I don't even know how old he was, but he was pretty young. We went to like an ice cream place near our house and had like dairy-free ice cream, and he started eating it, and then we noticed all like redness and like hives around his mouth. And I know for sure that that ice cream didn't have any dairy in it. It like was, I even called after and explained and all of the things. It had terrible ingredients, but
Sure.
so then I think my husband had looked up something about like cold contact on the skin that could cause like there's like a term for it. But again, he's had it a million times, so it was just surprising that it happened now, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things to keep in mind is as he's in the middle of his protocol, we're shifting the way that the immune system functions. So that cold contact is essentially stimulating mast cells under the surface of the skin, which is not a bad thing necessarily. But as the system is kind of shifting and we're asking more of it and kind of asking it to help with pathogens as well, it just might means that we might temporarily see new reactions to different foods or sensory inputs, essentially. So as long as it's not like full-blown hives to where, like you said, checking his body, making sure that it's not a full body hive situation and he's not having any issues with breathing, I would say it's okay as long as it does go away ultimately as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. What else? We got about 15 minutes. If you can't unmute yourself, you can totally put things in the chat. What do you got, Caitlin?
Hi, how are you? Took me a
Good.
second. I was like, I know how to use this. What's wrong with me? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So we just really just started with Lucy, with Sarah, and obviously I know it takes time. A lot of the supplements we started with, she's been on before, so I'm sure I won't see too much yet, but I do. Her issue right now, she's also sick with a cold, but she has these spots, especially her feet, that get so like irritated, broken, weepy, infected that
Okay.
I try like no moisture as much as possible, just because obviously that's better for her.
Mhm.
But if I leave it totally alone, it just like grows.
Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out what the best course of action is for those spots that I just don't want her to have another staph infection. So I'm
Yeah.
like, do I use the antibiotic ointment for a hot second to keep it under control? Is
Totally.
there something else? Like colloidal silver doesn't seem to be doing much. So I'm just trying to figure out if there's something else that I can
Okay.
layer on with zinc.
Perfect. Does it feel warm to the touch, or is there any like red streaking coming from like the part that's open?
I don't think I've ever noticed red streaking.
Okay.
Sometimes it can feel a little warmer.
Okay.
It's mainly her wrists, parts of her legs, and her feet are the worst part. Her feet are pretty bad.
Okay, great.
It's really just like yellow crusting, a little bit weepy,
Okay, perfect.
like sticks to her clothes, you know.
When you've used the the antibiotic cream, has that been helpful?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I
Yeah.
would say, particularly when it feels warm to the touch, using that antibiotic cream can be
Yeah.
fine, especially short
Okay.
term. So I would approach that the same way that we would talk about if we had something like steroids in place. Use it
Yep.
as needed. Don't do it just routinely, no matter what. Use it like,
Right.
oh, it's angry and needs some support. Let's go ahead
Yeah.
and do that today. Totally fine.
Okay. Okay.
Have you, if it's open, let's see, have you tried any hypochlorous spray by chance? I know
I
that Sarah put the olive oil that's ozonated in
yeah,
there.
no, I've been using like a Briotech
Okay.
on her for I don't know, a year now.
Okay.
Yeah, I use it on her skin pretty frequently.
Perfect. So I would definitely continue to do that and then just use the
Uh-huh.
antibiotic cream as needed to keep it in check so it doesn't get to the
Okay.
point of an infection.
Okay. Yeah, and just I feel like if it's constantly that bad, it's not going to really heal
Exactly.
at all. So I got to get it to a place where it can. Is there anything else? Like I sometimes do like a Manuka honey oregano oil bath or like Dead Sea salt. Like just keep
Yep. Yep.
doing
Absolutely.
that.
Yep.
Okay.
Keep doing that. As long as it's
Okay.
not burning her at all, totally fine to continue to do that.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
All right. I'll
Okay.
do that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I remembered another question. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So I was just talking about how we waited a while to get in with a local doctor here to where we're at. And he reacted to like literally everything that we tried to give him. Pretty sure he was even reacting to like a couple really simple herbs through my breast milk. So we've stopped everything. And I did get a genetic panel done on him. I think it's called like Nutrigenetics or something.
Great.
Do you guys work with those?
Not specifically, but if you send it
Okay.
to us, we're more than happy to take a look at it. It's not the test that we normally use if we're doing genetics, but we're happy to take a peek and make sure that we
Okay.
have a good understanding of how that's going to impact clinical decisions for him.
Yeah, because he does. I mean, I just like knew that he had some MTHFR variations, but he also has COMT variations as well.
Totally.
And I've learned from a support group that those can make processing supplements like really hard.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess that's why I'm just like scared to start something new because I'm scared that everything's gonna flare them up.
Totally. That's okay.
Yeah.
We see both of those genetic variations all the time. It just means the
Yeah.
detoxification capacity as a whole is being impaired, and means that as we start to bring in supplements that are supporting detox pathways, we're going to do that very gently so that we don't go too fast. We're basically turning on the light switch. So we just got to
Yeah.
be careful with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. What did you have, Lauren? I just saw your blood work. I'm so glad that you did that.
Oh, good. You know what? I saw it come through too, and I started like reviewing it, and my husband's like, "You need to
Don't
stop."
do
And
it.
I'm like, "But I know what some of it is, like at least in the thyroid world." But like,
Yeah.
anyway, it'll be good to review. I haven't heard if my total tox is in, so
I haven't seen it come through just yet, and I just checked this morning.
okay. Julia thought maybe by like the end of the week we could get something scheduled or earlier next week, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be good to just review everything with you guys. So,
Absolutely.
um, I know like I'm in close contact with Julia, like I'm hopping on a call with her in a few minutes. I think my biggest concern right now with Annalise is we're like reaching the end of phase 3 and like she's doing really well. But correct me if I'm wrong, like is the goal, and Julia has kind of said this, like, okay, we'll start weaning off supplements, like do retesting. But she had a flare like a week or two ago, and I was just saying to Julia how I was just concerned like going into the holidays, and like I thought some of the goal was to be able to reincorporate some of the MRT food sensitivities, and then like eventually like looking at some of her other allergies. And I'm just having a hard time seeing how that's going to happen because like we've even tried like little bits of things, and she's been able to tolerate some things. Like I'm not trying to go crazy of introducing things, but and even this weekend, like I made some friendly pancakes for her and usually use egg whites. And I'm like, let's just try an egg. And she was fine,
Good.
but she definitely reacted a little more. And I'm like, okay, we're a week or two away from like being done with this phase. So I don't know if you could talk to me a little bit about like kind of the end of the protocol and or like food sensitivity allergies.
Yep, totally. So I know her skin as a whole is looking a whole lot better. And that tells
Yes.
us about what's happening internally from an intestinal permeability perspective. So it tells
Okay.
us that things are getting better and she should slowly start becoming more, sorry, yeah, becoming more resilient and less reactive to foods and the sensitivities that we know she has. So I
Yes.
think it's a good sign, and it's kind of a mixed bag on what happens for kids. Sometimes parents are able to start introducing those sensitivities even while there is still a presentation of like the skin is not perfect, it's flaring sometimes, but we're moving in the right direction. So sometimes we can start to do that, and sometimes as we start to really see the skin clears, digestion's improving, we're seeing behavior and mood really stabilize as well. We have to wait until everything feels really stable and really kind of finalized to then start to bring in those food sensitivities. So it might just be a matter of just being a little bit more patient more than anything,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
her presentation was fairly severe, and we
Yes.
know that there's been a lot of progress that's been made, and so her immune system can take up to 3 months to recalibrate. So
Wow.
I tell you that so that you can kind of wrap your head around, we're seeing all these improvements for her right now where her skin's finally getting so much better. It might take a few months for everything to really stabilize in the way that her immune system mounts a chemical response to those foods so that it's not creating inflammation as we introduce those. So what will likely happen is over the coming months, as you kind of wrap up your phases and we start to introduce things slowly, it just means that we're gonna maybe see some reactions, but they should look drastically different than how they did before too, right? They're not
Yeah.
like causing the skin flares. It's just more of like, okay, I can see that this is still impacting her in small ways, but it's better than it was. If it's not, it just means it's not time for those things yet. So typically when we're thinking about those MRT foods, it's gonna be those, anything that was red is the very last thing that we're gonna reintroduce. Everything that's yellow or those high grains, those are the things that we can bring in a little quicker and we should reasonably see a more normal response to those foods.
Okay. But get through the end of phase 3, and then we will like continue to like monitor and have a game plan for introducing those
Yes.
things.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So
Okay.
basically, once we get to the end of phase 3, what we're really going to do, because we're going to stop doing eradication of things, is we're going to start focusing on more healing and sealing the gut, repopulating with good bacteria, making sure that those bacteria are being fed properly as well. And that's also going to help stabilize the immune system. So I think that's the one phase that you just don't have in your hands just yet that Julia is going to
Got it.
provide for you of like, this is where we're going.
Oh, okay. Okay. With that, is it important to do like testing? I know we have to be off certain supplements certain amounts of time before we can test, but like, is it better to do the testing sooner to see like, is there something that we're missing or things don't look like what they should be? Like,
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
So when it comes to the toxin side of things, we would want to wait at least 4 weeks after we stop any eradication or detox from that phase 3 to do retesting on the toxin side. For the stool testing, what I would probably recommend is actually getting more into that maintenance phase where we do some repopulation with beneficial bacteria to get those in a more optimal spot, because there's a very good chance that if we did a stool test right now, it's going to come back and they're still going to be low and there's going to be some imbalances because we haven't had a chance to rebuild those yet. So I would say it would take a couple of months to do that, and then just taking 2 weeks off primarily of the probiotic to do stool testing if you wanted to. So it's a little bit of like a hurry up and wait situation as we kind of bring some things in of the final pieces, so we can just make sure that more than anything, all those skin reactions that she was having don't come back.
Okay. Okay. I have questions about Annalise and myself on a total tox front, but until I see my results, I feel like I don't know quite what or how to ask it yet.
Okay. Do you want to try?
Well, I
Totally
just,
to you.
Annalise had really high levels, and we have not done any testing in our home. And I think part of me doing the testing is getting another data point. So I'm just concerned that things are still maybe not right there for her. And I know we're doing all these detox things, but I'm just like, if the environment is still not where it needs to be, I don't know. I guess I think
Totally.
that's one of my big concerns with all of this. I mean, for both of us, for our whole family, like,
Totally. I get
don't know.
that. I think I think your perspective on it is a very balanced one. So I think you're going to be able to see that on your toxin testing. If there are similar exposures happening that might help point to if something needs to happen in the home.
Okay.
Secondly, I think you can start to see some of those data points too as we do start to wrap up phase 3. So as we start to no longer have antifungals in place for her, if things start to come back, it means that her body is being burdened with something still, right? So there's still an exposure happening. So even
Okay.
without having that testing in place, if that starts to happen, that would probably be a clue for us that there's something from an environmental perspective that does need to be addressed.
Quick question on like the air doctors and like like the different filtrations. Like, my husband was like considering doing like more of like a home system, like different things that like our HA heating and air guy had recommended. But I feel like Julia was kind of saying like that might not be the best solution, or like if there is an issue, it's not going to like fix or filter things the way that it needs to be. But I just, at this point, I'm still concerned about it all. And I feel like we need to do something. Like, would you say that like doing a freestanding or like air doctor is like more of the way to go to like help mitigate? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, totally. I get what you're saying. So if you have like a HEPA filter that goes into the HVAC system, it's essentially one point of contact for filtration. And now that is being pumped throughout the entire home. So it can be helpful. That being said, it can miss a pretty significant opportunity if there is mold in the home, for instance, let's say, or if there's like any type of pollution, right? Because at the end of the day, things like carpet and furniture also put pollutants into the air that make humans sick. So having those standalone units is a little bit different in that they have like a certain square footage that they cover. So if you had, let's say, a suspect room, if you have an air doctor or some type of air purification in that area, it's going to help take that burden out of the air more effectively in a specific square footage than rather than relying on the HEPA filter in the HVAC unit that is probably going to be a long ways away. It can be helpful if there is something that's closer, right, to the HVAC unit that it's filtering pretty immediately, because one of the other complicated factors when it comes to mold in a home is that it can then contaminate your clothing and your personal items and your furniture and like all that good stuff. So I do think that it can be really helpful. And what I will tell you is, I think a lot of times in the mold space, there's a lot of fear mongering and it can be very overwhelming when it comes to mold. We do see people who, for instance, live in an apartment and they're like, I don't have any control over the mold that's here. I know it's here. I know it's making me sick. But having that air purification in that environment is going to lower the burden that we're inhaling on a regular basis, which makes a huge improvement. So it can really go a long ways, especially if you're like, there might be an issue, there might not, at this point in time. It's just going to help with lowering anything that you are all inhaling on a regular basis.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I think
Do
we're
you
good.
drive
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Hi, Taylor.
I have a question that I think might follow up with Lauren a little bit. And Carson is doing really well, although we haven't even gotten to any eradication steps yet. We did the plates for our home this past week and just opened them up. And initially, one of them for the nursery room carpet was like a shag rug, was like terrible.
Okay.
But the rest of the ones in our home still had colonies, like at most 6. Downstairs were 2, living room was 1, and like this huge white fluffy one. So like the other ones in our house had colonies, but nothing like the carpeted one did.
Okay.
Anyways, my husband does a really nice job of not letting me spiral and
Good.
tries to think about things more big picture. And we're trying to determine like the best next step, since we haven't really gotten into any eradication yet. And so far Carson's doing great. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I've been interested in testing myself as like a cross point, but to see if like we have similar molds, because our biggest question was like, this an exposure from when he was younger, or is this an exposure now? Because we had like a high feeling that it could have been a past exposure, but now the mold plates being somewhat maybe concerning, we're like, oh, maybe it is a exposure at home. And then my question to that is if we should do like one of the bigger tests then at that point.
Yep, sure. So I think anytime we're seeing colonies come up on those plate tests, it can be helpful to do something like an EMMA to determine if there is something, what is it, and how big of an issue it is. So that can be really helpful. The reason that we recommend that test is it's not only going to tell you about fungal count, but it's also going to tell you about mycotoxins. So knowing that some of those mycotoxins are more dangerous if they come up on testing, but we're not seeing the fungal count, it tells us about there being an issue that we just didn't catch on testing. So it can be a really nice, let's make sure that we're seeing both sides of the coin here. That might be something to consider, especially as you did see things coming back. The other thing I would say is with the carpet often comes back looking the way that yours did. Part of the reason that happens is carpet is essentially just a sponge for everything. It collects dust, it collects dander, and it will collect mold spores if they are there and circulating throughout the air. One of the things that often also happens with carpet is that we clean it with water. So we basically introduce water to an area where there might be mold spores and allowing for those things to grow. It doesn't tell us about if those things are actively producing mycotoxins. So typically removing something like carpet, especially if it's in an area where kiddo is like crawling around, touching on a regular basis, or if it's in their nursery where you're walking on it. Anytime we walk on carpet, we're basically putting dust into the air, which is totally normal. But if there is any mold there, it's just gonna be putting it into circulation. And knowing that kids sleep most of the time, especially when they're really little, they're spending a lot of time in contact with that type of exposure. So it could be worth removing it, replacing it, something like that. However, I wouldn't replace it with carpet if we aren't yet sure if there's an issue in the home, because we don't want to have to do it more than once, basically. So I think it'd be worth doing an EMMA test. It's going to give you a very definitive look at is there an issue here that we need to be aware of, or do we just need to pull out the carpet and we're good to go? That's probably going to be the best set of next steps so that you can have a really clear idea, but just planning on the carpet's probably going to come out at some point in time, but let's make sure that we're doing it in the right order first.
That's helpful. My husband immediately took the rug out to the dump, because
Perfect.
it truly is the only rug left in our house.
Perfect.
Otherwise, everything else is hardwood carpet. And I think that gives us more of a clear next step of if we spend the hard part too is I've looked through the resources and I doubt there's going to be anyone really local to us.
Sure.
So I feel like that might be the next best definitive thing to give us a little bit more answer. So, okay.
Great. Yep, absolutely. And then I would
Thanks.
just say continue to look around the home for any signs of water damage. You're not just looking for mold, you're looking for anywhere where anything is discolored, if it's misshapen, could have been a water leak at some point in time. Also, don't miss places where there might have been renovation that happened before you moved in, where like there might have been something that got hidden essentially by by new material.
Yeah, fortunately, we have a lot of those answers, which is good, but also makes me a little worried, like, what are we missing? Is it really behind a piece of drywall that, so we'll keep exploring that too.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. All right, y'all, I am out of time today. That flew by so quick. We're going to do another one of these in December. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, send me a message in Practice Better, or get a hold of your primary practitioner, and we are happy to help. Otherwise, thank you guys for all being here. It's so nice to see you all, and I will talk to you all soon.